Now, there was a guy that was there named Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson ran if you look in the newspaper, it says it's like a $100 million Ponzi scheme, but really it was $57 million. So he had lost $57 million. So it says 100, they always exaggerate because 57 is not enough. Ron ended up getting 19 and a half years. Ron was an old con man.
Mm-hmm.
Early 60s, 62, 61. I don't know. And Ron, I liked Ron. So we're walking around the compound and he's like, so what are you going to do? I mean, you got like 8 or 9 more years to go. And I was like, I'm going to keep writing. And when I get out of here, maybe I'll have a huge body of work and maybe I'll be able to sell it, or maybe I'll be able to option some more stuff. And if I could get together with Rolling Stone or get with some of these magazines, I could start writing for them and I could option those. Maybe I could walk out of here with something. So, right. So Ron who'd only been locked up like a year or so. He was cooperating with the Secret Service in his case against some of his co-defendants. So he's already been debriefed and he's cooperating. He's actually thinking he might get brought back to have to testify at a trial. We're talking and we're walking, and he keeps saying, even if they charge those guys, and even if this happens, they're not going to reduce my sentence. They're not going to cut my sentence. And, first of all, well, probably because you stole a bunch of money from pension funds and churches. That didn't help your case, but I don't say that. So I say, oh, they have to, bro. They'll have to. They've if you cooperate, they're going to have to. And if they don't, we'll have Frank file a 2255. And he's like, that crazy mother. So he says, okay. He's like, yeah, you don't understand. So this goes on for months. And I'm like, what is the problem? And he says, they think I hid Ponzi scheme money, and he'd actually dug up like $5 or $6 million in Ponzi scheme proceeds that he dug. He buried in these.
Oh, literally
buried in aluminum ammunition canisters. Mm-hmm. A super interesting guy. So he actually went and dug them up and gave them to him. And I'm like, well, you gave them all the money. You didn't hide anything. Relax. It's not a big deal. They're not going to find anything, so don't worry about it. And so he mentions it a couple weeks later. And then one day I go, bro, why do you keep bringing this up? Like, what are you concerned about? It's not going to happen. And he said, can I trust you? And I went, probably not. And he goes, I did hide some money. I was like, okay. I said, you bury it in a can somewhere? And he's like, no. He said, I gave my wife like $150,000 in cash. I said, okay, well, she's not going to say anything. She's using it. He said, no, you don't understand. Since then, she found out I was having an affair. And we're going to get a divorce. And she hates me. And I think she'll turn that money in just to make sure that I don't get a reduction. Because if you lie to the FBI, they're not going to, it doesn't matter what you've done for them, they won't give you anything. And so Secret Service or anybody, he has clearly lied to the Secret Service at this point. If she goes and says, this is what he gave me. So he's like, I was like, oh, wow. And he's like, and I gave my brother's holding maybe $30,000 for me. And at that moment, I was like, wow. Like, this poor guy. No, that's not what I thought at all. What I thought was, is that enough to get me a sentence reduction?
You son of a bitch.
And I went and I sat there. And you know what I thought? I thought, no. I thought, that's not enough. That's not enough. It's nothing. That's not even $200,000. Yeah. Like, and they didn't want to give me a reduction. My prosecutor was pissed that I got 7 years off. She wanted me to get 30 months. She's not going to give me anything. It's up to her. She's not going to do it. So I lay down, I go to bed. Like a month later, I'm on the phone with my lawyer because I had written, remember I had a manuscript for my book, and I wanted to put some of the stuff that was said in my sentencing in the book. So I was trying to get my lawyer to mail me my transcripts, and she hadn't done it. So I called her and I said, listen, you said you were going to, she's like, oh God, man, I'm so sorry. I'm so busy. I'll do it. And then she went, this is Esther. She goes, so what else is going on in there? And she never wanted to talk to me. Like, she didn't, when they were paying her, she didn't want to talk to me. And I was like, what do you mean? Nothing. I just need my transcription. She's like, nothing's happening? There's nothing you want to talk about? And I was like, and I went, you know what? You know what? There's something weird happened there. Listen to this. And I told her about Ron Wilson. And she goes, hold on. And she looks him up on the computer. She goes, oh, wow, this is a bad guy. This is a bad guy. And he told you, then you know where it is. Absolutely. And I can tell you exactly. And she goes, okay. She goes, let me look into this. I go, okay. So a week later, a CO comes to me and goes, hey, Cox. And I go, what's up? He goes, listen, at the next move, because they have controlled moves. All the doors are locked and they open them up for 10 minutes so you can run to the chow hall or you can run to you can't run though. There's no running on the compound, but you can walk fast.
Quickly, yep.
Yes, to the rec yard or the library, whatever. He says at the next move, go to SIS, So I go to SIS on the next move. But I was used to going there, by the way, because I was constantly ordering Freedom of Information Acts. And so I'd order, you're an inmate, and I'm writing a story for you, and I'd order it, and they'd send it to me, and then they would catch it, and they'd be like, why are you getting Lex's information? So they'd call me down there, and I go, no, I ordered it for him, and I'm writing a story. And I'd already been in Rolling Stone, and everything. They're like, what's the story? And I tell them the story. They got a pretty good story here. And so I go down there, but this is different. The guy answers the door, and his guy, they call him Bulldog. He was a real asshole. He was a lieutenant at SIS, and he's like, come in, get in here, Cox, sit down. And he dials the phone, and he goes, here, you got to talk to this guy. And I'm like, what? I pick up the phone. I'm like, hello? And the guy goes, hey, this is Agent Griffin with the Secret Service. I understand you know where Ron Wilson has hidden Ponzi scheme money. I go, whoa, I want something in writing. I want, so I start doing that, and they go, okay. And then I get his email address, and we start emailing each other back and forth. And he ends up getting a letter from the U.S. attorney in South Carolina that says they will consider it substantial assistance if they make arrests or recover a substantial amount of money. That's the best I'm going to get is consider. So I start talking to this guy, and he starts asking me questions about Ron Wilson. Like, hey, ask him this, ask him this. So I'm like, bro, I got to kind of work that into a conversation. That's an odd thing to ask. Yeah. So this goes on for 6 months. So I'm asking questions, and I'm typing up little reports, and I'm a prison snitch now. So I'm not just like cooperating. I'm a prison snitch. So I've moved down. I've moved down actually from being just a cooperating witness or
because you're in prison. Is that what makes you a prison
snitch? You can't even really say. No, you could say prison rat. You could say prison rat. I think prison snitch. I think that's probably the closer to the term that most guys would use.
What's the difference between a snitch and a rat in prison?
I'm not sure. It rolls off the tongue better. Prison rat doesn't sound as good as prison snitch. I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about this. So what happens is I'm asking Wilson questions periodically. And at some point they contact me and they say, listen, Wilson's about to get some bad news. And I go, okay. And they go, he's, like, I want to tell you what it is. Let us know what happens. So like 2 days go by. And one day, Wilson comes up to me one day and says, Cox. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, my God, you're not going to believe this. I got indicted. I was like, what? What happened? No. Yeah. My wife, they questioned my wife and my brother. And my wife walked in. First, she said, I don't have nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. The next day, the brother walks in and gives them $150,000 in cash. And so the next day, the wife comes back and gives them $250,000 in cash and a bunch of silver, like gold bullion and silver, because his Ponzi scheme was based off of silver. He was going to invest in silver for you. So $500,000. They turn over $500,000. I'm like, $500,000? I thought it was like 100,000 or something. And he's like, I know. I didn't know I could trust you. I'm like, Ron, what are you doing? I thought we were. So so I'll tell you something. Just for the icing on the cake, by the way, the icing on the cake. Let me explain one more thing.
Yeah.
So if somebody cooperates with the federal government, let's say I get arrested And they go, you want to help yourself? And you go, yeah, okay. Look, Jimmy he lives next to me and he's running a meth house, a meth lab, whatever. And they go and they raid Jimmy and he gets arrested. You're going to get something off for that. Not a lot, but you're going to get something. Now, and they could just say, we were going to bust him anyway. We were already on to him, right? Now, the next level would be you wear a wire. So I wore a wire and I was in danger. Now, keep in mind, I'm asking this guy questions inside federal prison. I'm in danger. So whatever, that's like the next level. You're taking an active participation in the investigation. Mm-hmm. And the third level would be you actually get on the stand and you cooperate and you testify. Mm-hmm. There's no better cooperation than that. So when Wilson says to me, they're going to move me back to South Carolina. They've indicted me. They charged me. What do you think I should do? And I go, I think you should go to trial. Because I know they'll have to call me as a witness. Yeah. Just to let you know. Because I don't want to walk out of here and have you feeling like, hey, there's some good to this guy. No. So I'm ready to cut Wilson like a fish. So
yeah. But you are putting yourself in danger if you get on a stand, right?
I'm already in danger. If people there heard what I was doing, I probably would have been in.
Doesn't that increase the chance of them hearing or no?
It does, but it also increases my ability to get more off my sentence.
Yeah, sure.
So what happens is a couple days later, he's on what's called the pack out, right? They're going to move him. Maybe a week later. So they come and get him. They move him. He gets back there to South Carolina and he pleads guilty. They sentence him. He gets 6 months added on. So now from 19 and a half to 20 years. And by the way, when COVID hit, he was released. So he only ended up doing like 6 years on a 20-year sentence because he was older. By that point, he's 66, 67 years old. Anybody older than 55 was endangered, especially in the prison. So they had a COVID thing where they were releasing these guys and sending them home on ankle monitors. Like, he's an old man. He's not going to hurt. He's not a danger. So they sent him home. So he ended up he didn't even serve the 6 months. He didn't even serve the original sentence. Whatever. Not that I care. So I'm just saying, if it makes you feel like poor Ron, it's okay. So his wife got like 100 hours of community service or something, or 60 hours. And I think his brother got 6 months papers. So they got charged with obstruction of justice. Mm-hmm. And they didn't, neither one of them, it's like 6 months probation and community service. Nothing. So when I turn around, I'm waiting for my reduction. Waiting. After about 90 days after this guy gets sentenced, maybe 6 months, I send a letter, hey, what's going on, to my prosecutor, the prosecutor of both districts, no response. Then I go to Frank, I explain to Frank, and Frank has known what's going on the whole time. And Frank goes, okay, I'm going to file a 2255. So we file a 2255. Government comes back and first thing they say is, Your Honor, we don't know about any cooperation. We've never heard about any cooperation. Mm-hmm. So, of course, then we submit the letter that we have. The judge comes back and the judge ends up saying, it's a little complicated, but he ends up saying, look, I don't have jurisdiction to hear this because you may be time barred. But I'm going to let the appeals court hear it. Now, typically you have to get what's called a right of a certification to appeal. You have to make sure that you actually have a case. Mm-hmm. He says, I'm waiving the cert and I'm waiving the $500 fee to file with them. He said, and he basically expedites it for me, which is a subtle way of telling the prosecutor, I think he's got something. And I'm sending it up there. And the way he writes his motion, it's basically saying, I don't have the jurisdiction to hear it, to do anything, but they do. They need to do it. And I'm paving the way. You don't have to pay any money and you don't need that cert. So the prosecution immediately comes back. They file a 1-level reduction. And Frank files something saying, hey, stop. We don't want the reduction. We don't want the one level. We want to come back to court. Please don't rule on it. So the judge says, okay, I'm freezing everything. I'm putting a stay on everything. I'm going to give this guy a lawyer to try and figure out what you're going to do. They fly down a lawyer, Leanne Weber. So she comes and sees me, and she says, listen, I see that you want to go back and fight this and this, but honestly, I don't think you're going to get anything more than one level. I talked to the prosecution. They said they'll give you, well, she said, I can work on trying to get you 2 levels, but you don't have much of a prayer. You're going to get crushed. And I said, well, then why are you here? If they can crush me so easy, why don't they do it? Why would they pay you they pay them like $12,000 or something just to fly down and all your expenses to negotiate for me? Why not crush me? And she's like, I don't know. I said, well, Frank said 4 levels. And she's like, who's Frank? I go, Frank's the guy that wrote all this. And she's like, oh, is he an attorney? And I go, is he in here? And I'm like, yeah, he's in here. She's like, why is he in here? And I tell her, he was taking over the world. Yeah. And she says, that's the strangest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And I said, I understand. But Frank said, and she's like, you're listening to an incompetent, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And Frank said 4 levels. We want 4 levels. He said for me to tell you, we want 4 levels. She says, okay. She leaves. She goes to the U.S. attorney. We argue 2 levels. They come back and say 2 levels. No, we go back and forth. We start filing motions saying we want to go back. We want a hearing. We want to bring back all the FBI agents, the Secret Service agents. And she's like, what do you want to turn this into a circus? Exactly what do I want to do? I want to turn it into the biggest circus because I've already got 1 level. Mm-hmm. They come back one day. She says, listen, 3 levels is the best you're going to get. She said, so I guess you'll be moved back here. We'll go to the hearing. I said, no, I'll take 3 levels. And she says, what are you talking? She said, you said 4 levels. You said Frank wouldn't let you take anything less than 4. I said, no, Frank said to tell you 4. I was happy with 3. I wanted you to argue for 4. I'm good with 3. I'm out of here in like a year.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to be moved back. I don't want to have to get on that bus. You know what it's like to be moved? It's horrible. So I said, I just want the 3 levels. So then we argue about the wording for about 2-3 months, and then they file it. And then I get 5 years knocked off my sentence because 3 levels at the level I was at now isn't 7 years. Every level, you get a little less time. So I get 5 years off. So now I've got 12 years knocked off my sentence. At this point, I maybe have 1.5 years to go. Mm-hmm. And, that's doable. So I was super, super happy. And I'm gonna tell you something. And I'm sorry, bro. But every time I think about it, and I just feel like I have to say it. Like, Frank, I'm insane. But I didn't have a fucking prayer without that guy. And as crazy as he is, and much of a pain in the ass as he was, I could never repay him, bro. I shouldn't be here. I'm supposed to be in prison right now. My out date was 2030 without that guy.
Where is he now?
He got himself out. He didn't do all that time. He got himself out. I don't even know how he did it. They even threw him back in prison again for 6 months, and he got himself out again. He's insane. He's incredible. He's insane, but he's incredible.
Is he really that insane?
He's in Orlando.
Is he? I mean, he seems like a good lawyer and a good man.
He's great. He's great. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind I would be in prison right now if it wasn't for him.
And he's done this for others?
Walk people right out. 10 years off, 5 years off, 9 years off, 10 years. I mean, I didn't pay, and I didn't pay for one thing. I didn't pay for my stamps. He paid for everything.
Sounds like the other lawyers don't really believe it's possible, and he does. It's interesting.
Well, I think he's willing to badger them into doing, what they should have done to begin with. I actually wrote a book about it, which he loved.
About him
and his story. It's so over the top what happened with him. No, I mean, it tried to take over the Congo. I mean, there's a documentary about it. It's called 9 Days in the Congo. It's an insane story. This is one of those stories that's just like, how is this not a movie?
It's not a movie yet?
No, I don't. I've pitched it several times, and it would be great. But so I wrote a synopsis and I turned that into a book.
What's the name of the book?
Oh, It's Insanity.
It's Insanity.
Yeah. But about it, like a year and a half later, like I ended up getting out of prison and I went to the halfway house.